Hey everybody, it's Nick here with you. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a rock album review for the brand new album from Lenny Kravitz. It's called Blue Electric Light. And for this rock album review, I'm joined by a very special guest. We have Hector, the chill dude on a couch. How's it going, Hector?
All good, man. Here, chilling on a couch.
Ready to talk about some Lenny
Ready to talk
Kravitz.
Lenny Kravitz. Yeah.
Right on. So, well, this is his 12th studio album. This is a follow up to 2018's Raised Vibration, which was an album that I enjoyed. And we're going to talk about some history of us listening to Lenny Kravitz, and then we'll get into talking about some general thoughts of the record and some of our favorite and least favorite tracks. For me, with Lenny Kravitz, I grew up listening to Kravitz on the radio. His songs were everywhere on the radio. If you were kind of a certain age, if you were growing up in the late 80s into the early 90s and the mid 90s, his songs were everywhere. And for me, Lenny Kravitz was always very much a singles guy for me. I never listened to a full Lenny Kravitz album. I always just listened to his big singles, Always on the Run, Are You Gonna Go My Way, Fly Away, his cover of American Woman. So those are the songs that I really remember from Lenny Kravitz when I was growing up. And I followed his career, throughout the years. I think he's a really super talented musician. I think one of the coolest things about Lenny Kravitz is that he records pretty much all the instruments on his albums. He's a multi-instrumentalist, very much in the vein of people like Prince, and we'll talk more about those influences coming up. Prince, Dave Grohl, people like that, musicians like that who are able to play every instrument. Lenny Kravitz is really one of those guys who can pretty much do anything. So I have a lot of respect for Lenny Kravitz as a musician, as a songwriter. I think he's written a lot of really classic songs over the years. I've always enjoyed his mix of funk and rock and soul music, and maybe even a little bit of hip hop in there as well over the years. So I would say that I'm a Lenny Kravitz fan. So how about you, Hector? Are you a Kravitz fan? What's your read on him?
So yeah, the first time that I started really listening to him was with "Are You Gonna Go My Way" back in 1993. I had a friend who gave me that tape, or so that's how when I really got into him. After that I listened to his previous album. But yeah, "Are You Gonna Go My Way" was huge on MTV. I remember the music video. It had other great tracks on that. You had "Believe," you have "Heaven Help." So it was really a cool album. And then I remember "Circus" was more of like a darker record.
Yeah.
But I owned a few albums from him. I have "Are You Gonna Go My Way." "Circus" I didn't buy, but I like it. I bought "Five." I bought "Lenny." And the last album that I bought from him, I think, was "Baptism" in 2004.
Good
And
record.
after that, "It's Time for a Love Revolution." I think that was the last album of him that I really listened to. And after that, I kind of like lost touch with Lenny, with his subsequent releases. But I love the singles. Actually, I have a vinyl for Lenny Kravitz, the greatest hits, the one that has "Again," because you know that all the great songs are on that greatest hits. So yeah, it's a if you must own something, I think, for Lenny Kravitz, I'm pretty much like I go a lot with the singles, even though there's some tracks that are not singles that are pretty good. But yeah, he's very great artist. I actually like him. I know that he was compared a lot to Prince when he started. I always thought of him like a mixture of Prince meets Jimi Hendrix,
Totally.
or something like that. But I'm not. I've said it on other channels. I'm not a Prince fan, but I prefer Lenny Kravitz. I'm sure some people will say like that's blasphemy, but that's just my take. So yeah, I've been listening to Lenny Kravitz. I just found out that he was gonna have a new album. I'm like, okay. I remember. I remember Strut in 2014, but Raised Vibration. I don't think I listened to that album. I can't remember that album as well. But yeah, I've always liked his singles, and I think he's very talented, and I want his workout regimen because the dude's like 60 and he looks great.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
does. Well,
that's
he's
my
always
history with Kravitz.
he's always working out in jeans as well. If you've seen him on Instagram, he's always working out, but he's wearing a pair of blue jeans each time. I'm like, is that comfortable when you're working out in a pair of blue jeans? I
Yeah,
know it's got to look cool no matter what.
I saw a video where he's working out with some like super like tight like not corduroy but leather pants. I'm like, who the hell works out this way? Only him.
Yeah, when you're as cool as Lenny Kravitz, you're not going to work out in your tracksuit or something. You're not going to go in wearing your shorts and in your t-shirt. You have to look cool at all times. That's the rule when you're Lenny
Uh,
Kravitz.
apparently, yeah.
Well, yeah, totally. I agree with you. Like with Lenny Kravitz, like you were saying, you have the greatest hits on vinyl, and that's pretty much all you need, I think, as a Lenny Kravitz, as a casual listener, like we both are. I wouldn't say I'm hardcore at all, and I do enjoy some of those songs. So you mentioned the Baptism record. There was a song on that record called Storm, which I thought was really cool. Actually had Jay-Z on it, which was a neat little track. And Raise Vibration, that last record that came out in 2018, I do remember reviewing it here on the channel, but I don't remember whether I liked it or didn't like it. I remember there being a couple of good songs on there. So I went in with this new record with high hopes, this Blue Electric Light. And I'll start out with my initial thoughts of this record. And I would have to
Sure.
say that this one, it kind of missed the mark for me. It started out great. I think this record starts out very, very strong. Right from the get-go, you have that really awesome funk rock feel of the first few tracks. It sounds very Lenny Kravitz, and I was really dialed into listening to those first few songs. But then I would say about the middle part of the album, around track 5, things completely went off a cliff for me as a listener. I thought all the cool guitar riffs and the funkiness of those first few tracks was replaced by cheesy synths and cheesy keyboards and all these weird orchestral bits that didn't really fit into some of the songs. Lenny once again played all the instruments on this record with his longtime collaborator and guitar player, Craig Ross. And again, I'm really impressed by that because it sounds great. It sounds like he has a full band playing here, even if it only is a couple of different people playing most of the instruments. But then when he was on those first few tracks, Lenny went from being the stone cold cool guy. Like Lenny Kravitz is always the coolest guy in the room, no matter what. And then by the end of the album, he sounded like a cheesy singer on a talent show, like on a competition show, like he was doing America's Got Talent, trying to sing these cheesy, love ballads and some of the cheesy retro sounding songs towards the end of the album. It did sound a little bit like a cheap Prince. We were comparing him. You were saying he's a mix of Prince and Jimi Hendrix, and I definitely got that vibe on there here, with definitely more of it leaning towards Prince and less of Jimi Hendrix, because you didn't have any of those big rock tunes. You didn't have any of those big riffs like "Are You Gonna Go My Way" or "Always on the Run." Those big rock riffs that you expect from Lenny Kravitz, and the synth sounds that he had on here. I don't know if you probably reviewed the most recent Smashing Pumpkins album, Adam. It was like the same kind of
Oh
thing,
yeah.
like tons of synths, but picking the cheesiest sounds, the cheesiest presets on the keyboard, not picking the cool sounds, picking the really cheesy old school retro sounds. So I think it started off strong, but then it really lost me towards the end. I didn't know that Lenny Kravitz could be so campy. This guy is supposed to rock, and he's supposed to really just be able to be the coolest guy around. And I actually thought he sounded really cheesy on this record. So those are my initial thoughts. So Hector, what did you think of this album from Lenny Kravitz, Blue Electric Light?
So for me, this album also was kind of like a mixed bag. But I haven't liked any of his, like the last 10 years for Lenny Kravitz, it's been pretty hit and miss. For me, he has like it's kind of like missing that swagger that he had in those 90s albums. Like it was, even the ballads that he had on those albums were great ballads, because if you never listen to Heaven Help the One from Are You Gonna Go My Way, that's a great ballad. And even in his 1991 album, the album before that, the ballads were great. But he's trying to mix 70s with 80s and 90s and modern all in one. And sometimes I think that can be too much. Like maybe he should I we all know he's a great musician, he can do a lot of things, but maybe he should like hone the sound and focus. If he's like when I read the name of this album, Blue Electric Light, I thought it's gonna be a funky record all around.
Right.
But it started funky, then they took the funk right out, and it just became like a bore. He hit the snooze fest, and it bore me. So yeah, that's what I feel like. I pretty much the same like you, that it started strong and then it started I started to lose interest, and it became like a chore to
It did.
listen to the album. I'm like, and he kind of lost some cool points as well with I don't know. It just uh yeah, the things that make him sound too much Prince, and I'm not a Prince fan,
Yeah.
uh, weren't that great for me. So yeah, I think the first listen it started strong, but I started listening to this yesterday. I listened driving, and I had to change it. It kind of bored me,
Yeah.
so I had to
Especially
change
when
it to
you're
something
driving.
else. So
Yeah. You need something to keep you
yes,
awake while you're on the road, right?
something to keep me awake. So those were my initial thoughts with it.
It sounds like Lenny's been working out in his jeans too much. He hasn't been working enough in the studio on the rock, and he's been too busy trying to look cool while he's in the gym. So
Well, I've
we'll
seen a video of him working out outside, like his bench is like a palm tree,
yeah.
and because he lives part of the time I think he lives in the Bahamas, and the
Okay.
other time he lives in New York City. So
Right.
I'm sure that when he's recording, he's in New York City, and then when he's not recording, he's in the Bahamas, just being himself.
I think I might have read that he actually recorded this album mostly in the Bahamas. So maybe he was a little bit too chilled out there, and that's why this record didn't have that rock edge that we were hoping it would have.
Or maybe you never know. Uh, but Lenny Kravitz is a strange. I remember like a few years ago or something that I read that he chose to be celibate. I'm like, oh yeah, of course you. Like,
Right.
if you're Lenny Kravitz, you can choose to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that really lasted really long, especially if you're Lenny Kravitz and you're one of
Yeah,
the coolest, most ripped rock stars out there, and you can play every instrument. I'm sure that lasted very long.
yeah, I'm sure. But yeah, it's listening to it, beginning to it's kind of like like a mixed bag. I think he was probably trying to encapture everything that he has done throughout his whole career. He's had a very long career.
Mhm.
I think some people don't realize that he has such a long career.
Yeah, it's been over 30 years now, so that's pretty
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah, and he's been around for a very long time. Well, let's talk about some of our favorite tracks on the record. For me, one of my favorite tracks was the first song on the record, which was "It's Just Another Fine Day in the Universe of Love." Really, really good title on that one. I felt like this was a good funky intro to the album. It sounded like porno music right off the bat. I'm like, should I be listening to this at work? Like, and it had that kind of feel to it. But it did have
the,
all of his essential elements, right? It had all the funky bass on there. It had the sweet guitar licks. It had the solid drums. He's playing most of the instruments as usual. And I thought this was a really, really good intro to the album. So I like that one. It was Lenny Kravitz sounding like Lenny. So that first track definitely appealed to me, and it sounded like he should on a Lenny Kravitz record. And then I really liked TK421, which was like a mix of all the influences that we were mentioning earlier. It's a lot of Prince in there. It has a little bit of Michael Jackson in there. It reminded me of Black or White, which is a great Michael Jackson song. Reminded me a little bit of Stevie Wonder in there as well. And then I was reading about this because I'm like, TK421. What is TK421? And I'm
it's a
like, sounds familiar.
stormtrooper.
Exactly. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And I'm like, yes, TK421. Why aren't you at your post? So then I remembered that it was a Star Wars reference. And then I'm thinking, again, Lenny Kravitz is the coolest guy ever. And he's a Star Wars fan too. So that makes him even cooler in my eyes. It might
Yeah,
not
I
make
would never think that he likes Star Wars.
yeah. Well, he was in the I was thinking he's a Hunger Games guy because he was in those Hunger Games movies. But maybe he wants a role in
He,
Star Wars now.
and
Maybe
he
this
didn't
is
look
his way.
hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Did not look hungry, and he was basically making Jennifer Lawrence look good in those movies. But yeah, I enjoyed that Star Wars reference, and then a couple of the other ones that I really liked. I like Honey. I thought that was a really good soul song slash love song. It reminded me of Marvin Gaye and that old school '60s soul. I'm a huge Marvin Gaye and soul fan, so that was something that I really enjoyed. There's a lot of good soul, like some horns on this record. If you love saxophones, if you love trumpets, if you love horns on your records and that old school soul sound, there was a lot of that on here. So I definitely enjoyed that part of the record. I enjoyed the soul influence on here. And then I liked Paralyzed. I thought Paralyzed was a good song too. It had a bit of talk box on there. So there's a return of the talk box because I just reviewed the new Slash record a couple of weeks back, and he used the talk box with his guitar on there. This actually had maybe one of the bigger guitar riffs on the record because there wasn't a
Yeah,
lot of guitar riffs in general on here. So I liked Paralyzed. That had a really cool groove on it and had a lot of great guitar interplay between Lenny and his guitar player Craig Ross on those. So those were my favorite songs. What about you, Hector? What were your favorite
I
songs on
think
Blue
we
Electric
have
Light?
almost the same picks.
It's the
Uh,
first half of the album. That's what we were,
yeah,
that's where all the
I
good stuff is.
I love Paralyzed. I like Paralyzed because I think it's got like a 70s progginess a little bit to it. It's got a great guitar solo. I think one of the best guitar solos is on that track on Paralyzed.
Sure.
I like TK421 because it's kind of funky and danceable. And at first I was thinking like, what the hell is TK421? But then I saw it's like a Star Wars reference. But I think that's a Star Wars reference. Maybe that's why I didn't know it because it's for the newer Star Wars.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it might have been
And
from the original. I'm not sure.
is it for the original? I think it's from the. I don't know if it's from the original or the new ones, but I'm not sure. But I know it's a Star Wars reference.
Mhm.
I like the album opener. It's just another fine day in the universe. Even though it's the longest track. It's like 6 minutes, but
Yeah.
it really sets the mood. And there's some electronics on this record as well. But there's a song until the end that I think "Love Is My Religion." I enjoyed that
Oh
because
yeah.
that's more funky. So I enjoyed that one a little bit at the halfway point of the album. So those are the tracks that stood out for me in a good way.
Yeah, so there wasn't a lot on here actually that I think both of us actually liked. I think there was probably some more songs in the minus column than there were in the plus column for this record. For me, the least favorites, it really right from the track, I think it was called Human, which was number 5 on the track list, I believe. Right
Yeah,
from
after
that, right,
Paralyzed.
yeah,
Mhm.
right after Paralyzed, the album completely changed in terms of its tone and its sound. It lost all that funkiness and completely went into 80s retro territory, full on discount Prince territory on some of these later tracks. The song "Human," right from the get go, when I heard that song, I thought, okay, it has decent production value, but it's really cheesy, it's really campy, and he's always walked that line between rocking out and being campy and cheesy, but this one was really too far in one direction for me. So this was the first song on the record that I didn't enjoy, and then it just completely went off a cliff for me in terms of in my enjoyment of the record. "Let It Ride" was an interesting song. Sounded like a mix of Prince and War. I don't know if you know the song "Low Rider." It's
Yeah, yeah, of course I know that song.
yeah, like that song. It reminded me of Lowrider. So I was thinking, like, what happened to the cool funk of those first few tracks? I was thinking, what happened to all the cool grooves that we were enjoying on those first few songs? And then the other one that I didn't really like was called "Bundle of Joy,"
Oh, you
because
got it. Yes.
yeah, I was thinking, I think this might have been the worst song on the record. It had those cheesy synths, those cheesy keyboards. It sounded like really bad Prince. And I'm thinking,
Even the name
but
is
yeah,
atrocious.
"Bundle of Joy," and that his voice did not sound good on here. Lenny Kravitz usually sounds good on any song he tries to sing, whether it be his own song or a cover song. But this was the first song I thought he sounds bad. He sounds legitimately bad on this song. So I would say "Bundle of Joy" was my least favorite, and also I think probably just in general the worst song on the record. So which ones do you think were your least favorite?
Well, Bundle of Joy is the worst song on the record.
Hands
Even the
down.
name Bundle of Joy, I'm like, oh my God, so corny. And yeah, it sounded like way too 80s, way too Prince-like. I didn't like also the album then, like Spirit in My Heart also was like pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
But I would agree with Human as well. That's when it like the first 4 songs. Even though I didn't love Honey, but I thought it was good. It
Mhm.
wasn't bad, but yeah. But the worst song on this album is by hands down is Bundle of Joy. It's very bad and just like so it's uncool. It's an uncool song.
It's very uncool, yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
like what happened, Lenny? What's Black Velveteen? You know, all the night spot in France. What happened to that?
Mm,
That cool, like I don't know, like where is he, Lenny?
yeah.
Like, and even the album Closer, Blue Electric Light, is like,
It's okay. It's not
it's
bad
okay,
for a closer, yeah.
but yeah, but yeah, the Bundle of Joy, hands down. I think anyone that listens to this album will say that that's the weakest song on the record.
For sure. And some of these songs are redeemed in certain parts. Like sometimes during one of these songs that are a little bit later on in the record, it's like it's a crappy song, but then a nice little guitar solo will come in there
Yeah,
and pick
because
things
Love Is
up.
My Religion has like
Yeah,
a cool funky part, like
yeah.
like Love Is My Religion. But it kind of I don't know, it reminded me of another song. Like now that I'm singing it, like it sounds like a lot of other songs that we've heard in the past.
Yeah. Do you find that happens a lot because you review so many records and you review so much music on your channel that, and when you listen to something, you're like, that reminds me of something, but it's like searching for a needle in the haystack. Like
Yeah.
you listen to so much music, it's hard to
Oh,
find sometimes.
yeah, unless I was here, I'm like, oh, this new Lenny Kravitz sounds just like Cannibal Corpse. That
Yeah,
people would be like,
exactly.
what?
Yeah, exactly. There might be a little bit of crossover there. You never know. But all right, well, let's get to our final thoughts about this new album from Lenny Kravitz. For me, it was okay. It started off really strong, like we said. It started off as a very strong album. It had all those elements of a Lenny Kravitz album that I was expecting to hear and that I wanted to hear. And he sounded great. It had that rock funk feel to it. Maybe not enough riffage in there for me when you think about some of his big riffs on like "Are You Gonna Go My Way." There's nothing on here quite like
he,
that.
he's a
You
good
know.
guitar player. Like
Oh,
when
he's
he,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah,
He's an amazing guitar player. So I
yeah.
think he did a good job. And then what we're saying is that the album goes off a cliff with this 80s retro synth sound throughout the rest of it. I don't know why he felt that that was the direction to go in. It seems like an odd direction. It seems so odd to make the first half of the record of a specific sound and then make the second half of the record a completely different sound. There are some things that go together, but most of all, just it feels like two different records all in one. And maybe he was not really trying to go for the rock thing. Maybe he was more trying to go for the 80s pop thing, and we just got a couple of tracks of the rock thing. I'm not too sure. So for me, it wasn't quite the record that I was hoping for, but I think there might be a couple of tracks on the beginning of it that I would take away from it. Like we were saying, that opening track is just another fine day in the universe of love. TK421, I think, is a great Lenny Kravitz song. So there are a couple of those great headline songs on here, but overall, I found it to be I found it to be a disappointment. So I'm going to give the new album a 2 out of 5. Hector, what are your final thoughts and what's your score for Blue Electric Light?
So for me too, it's not an atrocious record, but it's also not a great record. I think, like, if you would have put more guitars, like play to your strong suit.
Oh yeah.
Lenny Kravitz's strong suit is great guitar riffs, and you can have great guitar riffs and be funky at the same time. But I think he just mixed too many styles into one album, and it feels like a disjointed record. Like he doesn't know what he wants to do. So it bored me more than it that it made me happy. So I'm giving it a 2 out of 5. You know, it's not the worst thing, but it's also, if this was my Is It That Bad, I would have given it the thumbs down.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
I gotta be honest. You know, there's a few singles here that I can take away, but besides that, there's nothing in this record that I'm going to go back to,
Mhm.
honestly. So yeah,
Yeah.
sadly, yeah, it's a 2 out of 5 for me as well.
Yeah, it did make it over the hump for either of us. That 3 out of 5
Mhm.
is usually 3 out of 5 for me. Is it's okay. It's not amazing. It's not horrible, but it's okay. But this album it's leaning more on the bad side of things. I think I'd probably give it the thumbs down if I were if it were is it bad as well. So sucks
Yeah,
for Lenny. You know, we love him as a musician, and there are some good songs on here, but overall, not the record that we were hoping it would be. So we'll have to see if he gets it on the next one.
yeah, we'll have to, but I don't think Lenny's going to lose any sleep over our review.
Yeah, I think he'll be just fine being one of the coolest. He's still one of the coolest guys on the planet, one of the best
He'll be
musicians
like,
out
"Oh my
there.
God, they gave me a 2 out of 5, but I'm in this bed with 3 beautiful women. Who cares?"
I'm Lenny effing Kravitz. I can do whatever I want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, man.
Right on. Well, that is our review for Lenny Kravitz and Blue Electric Light. Thanks to Hector, the chill dude on the couch, for coming here on the channel. Hector, where can people follow you online, and where can they watch you on YouTube, and give them all the info?
So they can watch me on YouTube at Hector the Shield Dude on a couch reviews. The same on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram, the Shield Dude on Couch, and I post a lot of stuff there. I also have a Facebook page, Hector the Shield Dude on Couch. I do not do TikTok. So,
Unfortunately,
no,
I do. It's a little bit of a mess over there.
I used to have a TikTok, but I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
So you can follow me there, and I'm posting. I do album reviews, interview people, all that great stuff. You can find on my channel.
Yeah, and I'm going to be doing a couple more Is It Bads coming up. Isn't that bads? And there's a couple
Oh,
good records we're going to be talking about. I don't
we
want to
have a
spoil it.
good one for this
Yeah.
Friday that we're doing.
Right.
We're doing the new Trapped record.
Oh wow. I that would be interesting. Headstrong is that's not one of my favorite songs from back in the early 2000s. I remember thinking that song was pretty bad.
Oh yeah, so it should be interesting because he fights with the singer likes to fight with people on the internet. So I'm like, come on, Trap guy.
Yeah, exactly. Come after the chill dude on a couch and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Right on. Well, right on, Hector. Thanks for coming on the channel.
Of course, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll see you guys again for another rock album review here on the channel. Until then, rock on, everybody.